Arthur Wheaton is the Director of Labor Studies at Cornell University School of Industrial and Labor Relations. He joins me now to discuss more on what's happening with all these strikes. Arthur, let me begin with the strike at Kaiser Permanente. Some 75,000 people have walked out. What is the impact on patients, on Kaiser members, on people like my parents who are senior citizens and they have Kaiser? I'm glad they went and got their vaccine and booster shots before all this started.
It has a huge impact on the ability to get health care. It's one of the largest healthcare organizations in the U.S. They have about 13 million patients. But one thing to keep in mind is the union doesn't want to devastate the healthcare system either. So this strike is only targeted to be for 3 days. So it's not a long term. So some of the optional services can be postponed, but it's really a rallying cry saying we need more workers. The staffing levels are too low.
But Arthur, what happens if there's no progress in negotiations and this thing actually drags on, beyond the 3 days?
There's a good likelihood. They have like over 600 different locations, not just hospitals, but other locations. And they may limit some of those locations to reallocate those workers to try to make the larger hospitals or fewer hospitals be fully staffed. But you're absolutely right. It's a problem. And sometimes it's funding, sometimes it's wages, but the staffing levels are really important coming off of COVID. People have been working many, many hours for low pay for quite some time.
We've seen, as our reporter Asieh mentioned in his piece, we've seen a lot of strikes in the U.S. Writers, auto workers, now healthcare workers, all around the same time for the most part. So why are we seeing this now?
For a lot of the same reasons. So that the U.S. is coming off of COVID, having high inflation for the last few years. Just last year, it was close to 9% inflation. And most contracts only gave 2 or 3% raises, so you're falling behind. The other thing in the U.S. is we have almost record low unemployment. So the job market is definitely in the favor of unions, and there's 80% of the people support the strikers in many of these strikes or potential strikes that have been happening, that the public support is on the union side, because many of the things they are asking for are not for the highest paid. It's not a position strike. It's for the lower paid folks who could almost get more money working at McDonald's or fast food than what they're making caring for patients. So it's time for many of these employers to start paying a higher rate because of all of the inflation problems in the past.
I know you can't see the video, but we were showing images of President Joe Biden joining the picket line in Michigan last week. Really unprecedented for a sitting U.S. president. How significant was that for the union?
It's very significant. It gives them some additional legitimacy. It's not the first time President Biden has been on a picket line. He's been doing it for the last 30 or 40 years, but it's the first time a sitting U.S. president joined the picket line for the union. And it indicates that it's an issue that many working people can relate to. And politicians like it when they're on the side with 80% of the public. So it helps them in an election year. So it's good optics. It's good for public relations. But more importantly, it gives support to the workers saying, we hear you, we understand your demands. And it kind of encourages the employers, the companies, to pay a little more because they can show a lot of people are on our side.
Very quickly, Arthur, do you think the Biden administration and Congress should step in? They certainly did it with the fears of a freight railroad strike last year.
The short answer is no. And the reason why is there's 2 different labor laws. So under the Railway Labor Act for the trains, there is an explicit role for the president and for Congress to resolve it. There is no such role in the National Labor Relations Act, which is the private sector. So there's no role in government for them to do that. There is for the railways and airlines.
Understood. Thank you very much, Arthur Wheaton.